Welcome back. So this is episode 5 of Do Less Fall Behind. I'm Kate. I'm so glad you're here. If this is your first time here, welcome. If you have been here before, welcome back. So last week I had kind of set myself a bit of a challenge or a time frame container or whatever to try and answer 4 of your submitted questions in half an hour, which seemed very doable, but I actually only ended up answering 2 questions in 50 minutes. So I did not succeed. So this week I want to try, well, I'm not going to try, I am going to answer the other 2 questions that I was hoping to answer last week. Sorry, I'm just trying to light this incense. I think it must be a bit damp or something. It's not lighting. Okay. There we go. So I'm going to answer the other 2 questions from some of the submitted questions. And if you have a question that you would like me to answer and it's related to spirituality or healing or therapy or relationships, relational trauma, anything like that, growth, transformation, healing, like any of that kind of stuff, you can leave the question from the link below. I'm going to leave the link below. So the first question that I'm going to answer today is, I'm feeling my life running away from me. I'm in my early 30s and I have not achieved even one of the goals that I had set for myself over the last few years. I want to start an online business, but I push it off until tomorrow. I take one step forward and then I freeze. I doubt myself constantly and I feel like I'm missing out and nothing will ever happen for me because I keep getting in my own way. I get so frustrated when I see other people doing their thing and I'm just here thinking. So the first thing I want to say is I completely relate as someone who is prone to a little functional freeze every now and then, and as someone who is self-employed and has started businesses and has an online business, I completely understand the pressure and I completely understand the desire to want to do something, knowing what you need to do, but then not actually being able to like execute it, or being so overwhelmed with too many things to do that you can't do any of it. And also putting things off until tomorrow is completely understandable. But the thing is that a lot of the times when we do push things off till tomorrow, it's like, how do I explain this? There isn't going to be a perfect time in the future where all the stars will just align in a perfect way and we will just be completely ready to do things. Sometimes there is. Sometimes it is a really good thing to postpone things, and sometimes it is a really good thing to give ourselves the space and give ourselves the permission to like, I don't need to do this today. I am going to put this off till tomorrow. But sometimes we over rely on pushing things off till tomorrow, and then when it is tomorrow, it's just today. And then when we're in today, there's another tomorrow that we can just keep pushing it off. It's like this imaginary time. It's this imaginary place in the future where we will just feel ready. And sometimes that is true. Sometimes it is a good idea to give ourselves that space. And sometimes, as I said, we over rely on this imaginary time in the future where everything will just be perfect and we will just be able to do something. So sometimes it's a good idea to give ourselves the space and to not have to do everything today, because that's impossible. But are we over relying on pushing it off till tomorrow? Are we over relying on expecting that there's going to be some magical perfect time in the future where we will just have the energy and the motivation and the discipline and the devotion to get shit done? And the thing, when you were saying there as well about you're feeling so frustrated about seeing other people do their thing, it's almost impossible not to compare ourselves to people when we're on social media. And if you wanted to start an online business, I presume you are going to have to use social media. So you're on social media and you're seeing other people starting their businesses or doing their thing, and you get almost that like jealousy of, I wish that I was doing that, and getting so frustrated when you see other people doing it. Why can't I do that? And if you do suffer from any jealousy is actually quite a good tool to use. Jealousy is actually quite a good teacher, because it shows us what we want. And if you know that you want a business and you know that you want to do, I don't know what the business is, you didn't mention, but if you wanted to start a clothing business or a makeup business or a personal training business, and you can see other people doing that, and you feel that frustration and you feel that jealousy towards them and you feel that frustration with yourself because you're not taking the steps towards it, it can be a good thing. I understand the frustration and it doesn't feel good at the time, I know, but you can use that as an indicator of like, this is what I really want. I wouldn't be having these strong feelings when I see other people doing the thing if I didn't really want to do it myself. So when we think about creativity, and again, I assume you're going to be using social media because it's an online business, and social media requires you to be creative. It requires you to create content. It requires you to connect to people. It requires you to build a brand and all that kind of stuff and put yourself out there and just be visible. So that requires creativity. And when we're thinking about being creative, we cannot force ourselves to be creative. We cannot force ourselves to create. We just can't. I can't. Anyway, I definitely can't. I can't force myself to be creative, and I can't force myself to show up and talk and be here or whatever, or post on Instagram or any of that kind of stuff. I can't do that. But what I can do is to try my best to create the perfect conditions under which my creativity are most probable. Does that make sense? So if we think about creativity like sleeping, we can't force ourselves to go to sleep. We can't just go to bed and close our eyes and be like, sleep, go to sleep, and like force ourselves to sleep. But we can create the conditions under which sleep is most probable. So we can turn off our phones, we can turn off the TV, we can turn off all the lights, we can wind down, we can have stretches, we can whatever your sleep pattern is or whatever your sleep hygiene is. There's things that we can do to let our bodies know and to let our minds know we're winding down, it's time to sleep. So the conditions for sleep are most likely, and you create those conditions. So it's the same with creativity, and it's the same with content creation or sharing ideas or having an email list or having clients or doing any sort of creativity work. You can't really force yourself to do it, but you can create the conditions under which it's most likely that the creativity will happen. So thinking about, I was talking to my friend about this yesterday, but thinking about your creativity like a garden and thinking about your business like a tree or a plant. You can't just plant the plant. You can't just plant your tree or plant your flower in the ground and then just like force it to grow or like will it to grow or think about it and it will grow. You have to nurture the soil. You have to get rid of the weeds. You have to prune all of the dead flower or all of the dead leaves off. You have to use fertilizer maybe sometimes. You have to make sure that there's no bugs eating your plants. So if you think about your business like a plant, what are the conditions under which this plant is growing? What are the conditions that, and this also works this is actually better to do if you haven't even started your business yet, if it's just an idea, because before you plant the seeds of your tree, that's your business, you can look after the soil. You can make sure that the soil is perfect. You can make sure that there's no bugs in the garden. You can make sure that there's no birds coming along that's going to eat all the plants out of the ground or eat all your seeds out of the ground. Just nurturing that space and creating the conditions that will most likely result in that plant growing up to be a healthy plant. Does any of this make any sense? It makes sense in my brain, so hopefully it makes sense. Hopefully it makes sense in your world. So creating the environment for ourselves to thrive, for our business to thrive, and for our projects to thrive. So looking after the ecosystem, looking after the environment, and looking after ourselves, like looking after our space, looking after our whatever it is that we need to put into our business in order for it to grow. We need to make sure that the environment is healthy for that tree to grow or that plant to grow. And you were also saying as well that you doubt yourself constantly, and I feel like I'm missing out and nothing will ever happen for me because I keep getting in my own way. So I'm hearing imposter syndrome, the dreaded imposter. And there's a couple of interesting things about imposter syndrome. Sometimes we intentionally fail, or we intentionally keep ourselves small, and we intentionally don't follow through on our plans just to verify and confirm that we are actually shit. If we have like these belief systems about ourselves that like we're not able to do things, we won't be successful, we're failures, we're always terrible at everything. Sometimes the imposter pops up to get us to confirm that we are actually shit, and to get us to confirm that belief, that subconscious belief that we have about our failure or about our like business or whatever. it could be there to confirm underlying belief that we have about ourselves. So I would be wondering where these beliefs came from. Doubting yourself constantly, feeling like you're missing out, nothing will ever happen for me because I keep getting in my own way. I'd be very, very curious about where those beliefs are coming from, where they stem from. Maybe doing a little bit of shadow work around our beliefs about how capable we are, our trust in ourselves. That's what I would be curious about, that for sure. Another interesting thing about imposter syndrome is it keeps us safe. The imposter kind of keeps us safe because we know what it feels like to be in this position where we are already. I know what it feels like to be in this position, but I don't know what it feels like to be 10 steps ahead. I don't know what it's like to be one step ahead because I'm comfortable in this space here. Before I did this podcast, I didn't know what it was like to do a podcast. I didn't know what it was like to put myself out there in this way. And I wanted to for a really long time. I wanted to start a podcast for years, but I just didn't. And it was good. It was good that I didn't anyway, but blah, 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 blah. But I had the imposter there. Like, she was there. My imposter was like, what are you doing? Nobody's going to listen. You don't have anything to say. Like, who do you think you are? Absolute notions, whatever. And the imposter was there to confirm those shadow beliefs about myself, that like I'm a piece of shit and that I'm not capable and that I'm not able and I can't do it and blah blah blah. But the imposter was also there to try and keep me safe and to try and keep me in my comfort zone, because growth can be scary because you don't know what it feels like to be at the next level. You don't know what it feels like to achieve something. You don't know what it feels like to be at a certain level of success because you're already in this container. You're already in this bubble of your comfort zone or of your resonance, like where you're able to, it's just your comfort zone, all the things that you're used to and the success that you're used to and the job that you're used to and the life that you're used to. And if you were to step out of that to grow and start a business, that's unfamiliar. And it could be uncomfortable, but it could be the best thing ever. It probably would be the best thing ever to like expand outside of that. But the imposter is trying to keep us safe, at the expense of our own growth. So my thing that I do when I do when I feel the imposter popping up with me, and I have those niggly self-doubts and I have those old belief patterns and those old subconscious beliefs coming back up, and those kind of shadowy aspects of myself coming back up to say that I'm a failure and that nobody cares and that I'm a piece of shit and blah 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 blah, I will acknowledge that the imposter is there. I will say, I see you, I know you, you've been around for a while, you've been here forever, I'm going to take you with me. Like, treat the imposter as if it is, because it's a part of you. It is you. It is one aspect of you. It is one part of you, this imposter syndrome. So what I would do is to take the imposter with me. I feel you. I know you're there. I hear you. I'm going to hold your hand and I'm going to fucking take you with me. There's a seat beside me. You can sit in it, but I'm going to do it anyway. So that would be one way that I would deal with imposter syndrome for sure. And I know it's like a lot easier said than done. And it's a lot easier said than done. And it does take work, and it might not be the first time you try it. It might not be the second time you try it, but maybe the third time that you notice that the imposter is there, you might be able to take it with you. I'm taking you with me. You're coming with me. I know you're there. I hear you. You're very loud. Yes, I know. I hear you. I know. I hear you. You're coming with me. Sit beside me here while we do this thing. But maybe the first time you notice the imposter, it is just acknowledging that the imposter is there. It is just acknowledging that they're being really loud. And maybe that's all you need to do today. If you feel the imposter, maybe that's all you need to do for the next week or the next month, is just to acknowledge the imposter and acknowledge that they're there. And then maybe talk to them or just acknowledge and say like, yeah, I hear you. I hear what you're saying. I know you've been saying that to me for years. I already know this story. Yeah. Okay. And not to fight the imposter. This is like the thing about shadow work that a lot of people get wrong, is they think that you're trying to like eradicate these shadow aspects of yourself. But actually what you're trying to do is like befriend them, which sounds bizarre, but it actually works a lot better than trying to like dismiss them entirely or reject them. They won't go away. Especially if you just keep sweeping them back under the rug. The best thing to do, in my opinion, is to be like, yeah, I see you. I hear you. Hold my hand, bitch. You're coming with me. That works for me. That's how I integrate my shadow. I'm like, you're just fucking coming with me. You're coming with me. You don't you're not in the driver's seat anymore. these shadow aspects of myself are not in the driver's seat anymore, but they do still pop up, but I can like play with them now almost and like bring them with me. So that's what I would say about the imposter. And I just wanted to acknowledge as well that where did you say it? I take one step forward and then I freeze. So just acknowledging that there is the step forward, acknowledging that there is forward momentum, even if after the forward momentum there comes a freeze, that's okay. Just acknowledging and even celebrating if you feel the space to be able to celebrate and acknowledge that I took this step forward. I did that thing. I took that step forward. There are so many steps to being successful. There are so many steps to having like a thriving business or a successful business or being visible online or having customers or clients or whatever it is. There's so many fucking steps. And usually on social media, we see everyone at their last step. We see everyone when they're like, oh my God, I'm earning 10k a month, or I sold 100 things, or what, I'm completely, all my books are closed, I'm super booked up for the next 6 months or whatever. Like we see the step 10. We don't see step 1, step 2, step 3. We see step 10. And there are so many steps to get to in order to reach the goals that we want to achieve. And each one of those steps, we can celebrate each one of those steps. We don't have to wait until tomorrow. We don't have to wait until this imaginary time in the future where all of the things have been achieved, all of the goals, all of the dreams, all of the steps, all of the to-do list is done. Every single thing is done. And then we allow ourselves to celebrate. We can't celebrate until that thing is done. It doesn't have to be that way. Every single tiny step forward can be celebrated. Like if you have friends that you can share that with, being like, I did this today. I have done this thing. I've ticked a thing off my to-do list. I set myself a goal of doing this thing and I've done it. I need to celebrate. And you can also celebrate that yourself. You can celebrate every step forward. You can acknowledge every step forward without the accompanying guilt of, I should have done this, I should have done this, and all I've done is this. You're never going to be able to get every single thing done in the one day. You're never going to be able to get every single thing ticked off the to-do list. And I was actually doing this with my friend yesterday. And we both agreed, today is Wednesday, the 26th of February, and we both agreed that just for today, I was going to do 2 things. I went to the gym, that was one thing, and doing this podcast. Those are my 2 things those were my 2 things on my to-do list, or those were the 2 like goals or dreams or whatever that I had for today. And anything else that I get done today is extra. The only 2 things that I need to do today were go to the gym, beyond obviously like responsibilities, beyond obviously like being a mom, like cooking dinner for my son, or like beyond just the day-to-day like responsibilities. Obviously the only things I needed to do today were go to the gym and do this podcast. Anything else I do after that is a fucking bonus, but I'm not going to beat myself up for not doing everything on my to-do list or not doing every single thing that I need to do in order to get my business in order to grow my business. I can't do all of that today, but for today I can go to the gym and I can do this podcast, and that's all I need to do today. So give yourself one thing to do without focusing on all the other million things. Just one thing to do. And if you can take one step forward, one tiny step forward, and it doesn't even have to be every day. Like you don't have to do something every single day for your business. You don't have to do something every single day for your like online growth or whatever. I'm so against the like hustle culture of like getting up at 4 a.m. and doing. Have you ever seen those like productivity videos on TikTok? And like I see men doing them all the time and I'm just like, yeah, whatever. But when I see women doing them, I'm like, angel, princess, girly. No, the videos that are like my 5 to 9 a.m. before my 9 to 5. Did anyone see those videos? I hate them. I'm sleeping. I'm asleep. I am not getting up at 5 a.m. to run 10 miles and do like working on my side business before I do my corporate job. I don't have a corporate job, so like whatever. So like obviously I can't relate. Maybe I'm not the right person to be like criticizing what people do because they're in an office 8 hours a day. I'm not. So it's just that like grind culture, that hustle culture, that like boss babe, girl boss or whatever thing. I'm just so against that. I have a business, I run a business, whatever. But it's very slow. I have had this business. I have been into somatics for years. I have had my website for almost 2 years. This current business, this current era of my business or whatever, the Crybaby Somatics, the shadow work stuff and all the stuff that I'm offering online, that's been going for 2 years. And it was a lot of planning before that, behind the scenes, that I wasn't talking about online, that I wasn't sharing anything about at all, but it was a lot of work behind the scenes. And then even after I got my website up and I got the shadow work course up, I'm still working on everything. I don't feel like it's done at all. I don't feel like it's done. It's just there. I don't need to worry about it. I'm still thinking about how to change the copy on my website. I'm not really happy with it. It's not very clear what I do. It's not very clear who I can help. It's not very clear who I am. And I'm trying to fix that. And but that's on my to-do list. I don't have to do everything today, because just for today, I just needed to go to the gym and do this podcast. So maybe tomorrow I might have something else that I can do with my business. But anyway, I feel like I'm absolutely rambling and ranting, and hopefully I'm helping. But another thing, there's more. We're 21 minutes in. I'm still on the first question. Another thing I wanted to talk about is our dreams and our goals, and moving away from the kind of hustle culture, moving away from the kind of bro advice for when it comes to our dreams. Can we go slower? Can we give ourselves more space? Can we invite in more spaciousness for our goals and for our dreams? And can we slow down? Can we bring our nervous systems into it? Can we make sure that we're not dysregulated or really charged? Can we just slow the fuck down? It's okay if you're starting a business and then moss starts to grow on your legs or moss starts to grow on your fingers. I'm very, very mossy. I feel like a moss girl, a moss babe. I am not a boss babe. I'm a moss babe. And I move very, very slowly. But I've never felt super urgent with my business. I've never felt super activated or triggered or anything by my business. It's all been very, very slow. But I completely understand as well, viewing other people and seeing other people doing. I followed so many somatic therapists for years, and they're posting every day, and they've got all these programs, and they've got all these customers, and they've got all this money, and I'm not there. And that's okay. I will get there, but I'll get there in my own time. There's moss on me. I'm slow. I'm completely slow because I am looking after myself while I'm building my business and while I'm taking on clients and selling things and helping people. I'm also making sure that I'm okay. I'm also making sure that I'm not super dysregulated or super fight or flighty or urgent or stressed or whatever, because what would be the point in teaching people how to regulate their nervous systems if I was super dysregulated, or the process of being a teacher or the process of being a somatic therapist was making me dysregulated? That kind of defeats the purpose, in my opinion. Anyway, so talking a little bit here about goals and dreams and our focus. So where are we aiming our focus? Where are we pointing our awareness? What's the direction? Is it this way? Is it this way? Is it this way? Is it this way? I feel like I understand what this feels like because I have been there before. I'm not there now. Thankfully, I'm not there now, and I haven't been there for a while. I feel like I have a direction and I'm pointing in that direction and I'm going in that direction. I'm going very slowly, obviously, but I'm going in a direction and I've pointed, I've aimed, and I'm going. But I feel like when I talk to some of my friends or when I talk to clients or whatever that I work with, there's a lot of scatteredness or whatever, and we're kind of a little bit all over the place, and that's okay, because you're allowed to be messy and you're allowed to be kind of scattered and scruffy, and that's okay. But where are we aiming our attention and focus when it comes to our business, when it comes to our goals, when it comes to our dreams? Where are we going? So another thing I want to talk about is congruence. So when we think about our dreams or our the life that we want to have, the business that we want to have, the person who we want to be, the thriving business, or the boss girl or the moss girl or whatever you want to be, when we think, or the self-employed person who can make their own schedule, the dreams that we have and the direction that we're pointing, when we figure out what direction we're pointing and we figure out where we're going to aim our focus and aim our attention, and we know what the dreams are and we know what that looks like, and we know it's over there, and I need to go this way, I need to go towards this. R A or E space OUR our actions, daily habits, and behaviors, are they in harmony with the dreams that we have? So like what we were talking about earlier about creating the perfect conditions under which our success or under which our creativity is most likely to thrive. Are we creating the conditions? Are we creating the right environment in our lives, in our daily lives, in our habits, in the way that we speak to ourselves, in the way that we show up, in the way that we respect ourselves, in our relationships with other people, the way that we allow ourselves to be treated, the investing in our bodies, investing in our health, drinking loads of water, whatever, going for walks, whatever it is, whatever that looks like for you. Are the actions and the daily habits and the practices and the rituals that we have every day, are they creating the best condition for our dreams to happen? And if no, that's okay. But what would that look like? What would that look like if we got really clear about our dreams, if we got really, really clear about the direction in which we're going and where we're focusing our attention and where we're aiming to go? What might we need to change from our daily habits in order to be taking steps towards making sure our dreams are possible? What do we need to give the soil to make sure that it's fertile? Is there something that we need to take out of the garden? Is there something that we need to put into the soil? Do we need to put some like weed killer down? Do we need to like pluck out a few things that are getting in the way? Maybe we need to chop down a few trees to make room for new trees. I don't know, whatever it looks like for you. Is there congruence between the dreams that we have and our daily rituals and our daily habits? And when you figure out whatever rituals they are, whatever rituals you can do, or whatever practices or habits or daily things that you can do in order to create perfect conditions for your tree to grow, for your business to grow, for you to take a step towards your dream, making meaning in that, creating meaning, creating a relationship to the meaning of all of these habits, visualizing and just understanding that I'm doing this for this reason. Creating meaning is really, really, really important. And then deliberate, intentional, repeated steps over and over and over again with the meaning. This is the meaning behind these rituals. This is the meaning behind this meditation. This is the meaning behind keeping my room clean. This is the meaning behind going for my walks, clearing my head, relaxing my nervous system, regulating myself, being creative, creating the space for creativity, taking notes, watching inspiring people on YouTube who give me lots of ideas or who make me feel good about myself, unfollowing people that make me feel shit about myself, whatever. Finding the meaning in that and then repeating that deliberate, intentional effort, repeating those rituals, repeating those steps that you know are creating the conditions to make your creativity and your growth most probable. Okay. And then there's another thing as well here about perfectionism and procrastination. So when we are thinking about procrastination, it's the imposter pops up as well as a defense mechanism, and perfectionism and procrastination are also defense mechanisms as well. They're protecting us against this fear of rejection. And again, it's this like imaginary time in the future that everything will be perfect. It's this imaginary time in the future that probably doesn't exist, that all the stars are aligned, that we are just perfect at creating content, that we are just perfect at putting ourselves out there. We are just perfect at being visible, instead of because we're so scared of being rejected. We're so scared of nobody buying our products, or nobody supporting us, or nobody wanting to join our memberships or whatever, or sign on to our personal training or whatever it is, whatever your business is. We're so scared of people rejecting us that we will always try and wait to be as perfect as possible, or we will just keep procrastinating, pushing things into this invisible time in the future where everything will be perfect. And that doesn't really exist. So understanding that if you do notice any perfectionism or fear of being messy, or fear of being seen trying, if you're scared to be seen trying, then asking yourself, am I scared of rejection? Is there an underlying fear of rejection, or an underlying fear of being cringe, or an underlying fear of being judged by people? And this illusion of perfection. If I'm perfect, if I make sure that every single picture that I post is perfect, if I make sure that every single caption that I post is perfect, if I make sure that every single thing I say or offer is absolutely perfect, then nobody can judge me because I'm perfect. But the thing is that like you'll never, ever, ever, ever be perfect. And it's so much better to just show up messy and imperfect than it is to put the pressure on ourselves to show up perfect, because there's no such thing as perfect. No, you will never say anything that like most people agree with anyway, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter about trying to be perfect, because there is literally no such thing as perfect. One person's perfect is like another person's like worst thing ever, you know what I mean? It's just completely subjective. So this fake illusion of perfection, this fake illusion of there might be a perfect time in the future to like do all this kind of stuff, it's pretty much an illusion. I'm so pro like being messy, and I'm so pro just like bleh, bleeding out everywhere, which I know is probably not the best the best advice to take, but that's kind of what I do. But okie dokie, let's keep going. It is 33 minutes. I just have a few more things to say about this, and I know I said this earlier, but just focusing on one thing, whatever the steps are for your business, the actionable steps that you need to take, focusing on how would it feel to actually have your business? What would that feel like for you to actually reach the finish line and to launch your business and to click go and click publish and to have everything out there and to be making content and to making TikToks, making Instagrams, having a thriving email list, whatever? What would that feel like for you? And how can you invite that feeling in today? What could you do today to like invite that feeling in while you do your one thing, whatever your one thing on your to-do list is? What is that one thing that you could do today? What is that one action step that you could take today? And what would you like, how can we bring in that feeling of like achievement? I've done it. Congratulations, celebration. Like, how can you bring that in today while you do your one thing? Can you practice doing one thing and celebrating yourself for doing that one thing, dropping the guilt for not being able to do all the other things? Because if we're focusing on one thing, we can only focus on one thing at a time anyway. Like, we can't do 10 things at once. We can't give every single task on our to-do list equal time and equal space. That's not realistic. Like, it actually just is not realistic. We can only focus on one thing at a time. And if we are working on one thing and we are giving one thing our attention, we also need to just accept that if I'm focusing on this one thing, of course I can't focus on the other 10 things. I'm focusing on this one thing and I'm doing this thing to the best of my ability and I'm giving this thing focus. I can't possibly like spin all these plates at the same time and expect not to drop some plates. And I'm not going to guilt myself for not focusing on 10 things at once. I'm going to celebrate myself for giving this one thing my attention for today. Okay? Because what happens is when we focus on everything at once, and when we put the pressure on ourselves and we get ourselves so fucking worked up and so overwhelmed by so many things that need to be done, we end up doing nothing because we're like, how can I do this and this and this and this and this and this and this? How can I be in 10 places at once? How can I do 10 things at once? We literally can't. That is not possible. So what happens is then comes the freeze, because a freeze response isn't actually a flop. I think a lot of people think that a freeze response is actually like a pause or like what's like a floppy kind of response, like I just can't do anything. And actually a freeze is really, really active. Think about like a block of ice. It's hard. It's not a floppy like bleh, like jellyfish or whatever. It is rock solid, because what happens in a freeze response is we want to go here and then we want to go here. We want to do this. We want to do this. So typically when we're talking about like a nervous system response, and say in fight or flight. So think about fight or fight. Fight is like fight, going this way, and flight is like run, go that way. So you're fighting, you're flighting. There's two different movements. So what happens in a freeze is we don't know whether we're going this way. We don't know whether we're going this way. So we get stuck, but actually we're moving. It's active. We want to go this way. We want to go this way. We don't know what to do. So we freeze, but it isn't a relaxing freeze. It isn't like sleeping. shut down. That's not what it is at all. It's like, it's really, really, really tense, and it's really, really hard. So when we're in a freeze, when it comes to a nervous system response from being overwhelmed, it's because we are focusing on this, and then this, and then this. And our energy and our awareness is being pulled into 20 million different things, or even like 3 things at the same time. And we don't know where to go. It's really active, and then we freeze, but you're still tense. You're not like, I'm frozen and I'm just going to like lie here and die. You're frozen and you're tense. So it's actually really, really active. A freeze is a really, really active, all trauma responses are obviously really active, but I think people have this misconception about a freeze response being like, I'm just going to give up. And that's not what it is at all. It's really, 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 it's really, really, really tense, and it is super charged up. So when we're talking about freeze in a business, it's because we're focusing on too many things at once, and we're overwhelming ourselves, and we don't know where to put our energy because there's too many things at once. So giving yourself permission to focus on one thing. What one thing can you do today? And practicing, it might not come the very first day. It might not happen the very first time that you like give yourself permission to drop the guilt, but practicing dropping the guilt for not being able to do 10 things at once. Nobody can do 10 things at once. Not a single person, unless you have like a team. I don't fucking have a team. It's just me. Like, I can't do 10 things at once. I can just do one thing at a time. And I used to be so overwhelmed with, I want to do this, and then I do this, and I have to do this, and I have to do this, and I have to do this, blah, 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 that I wouldn't do anything. And there would be like weeks that would go by where I'm just like, fucking crickets, because I couldn't do anything. And then obviously like brought the nervous system into it, brought the somatics into it, and now I can give myself permission to do one thing at a time. I can celebrate myself for the teeny tiny baby steps that I do take, and drop the guilt for not being able to do everything at once. So that is something that I would like for you to try, and let me know how it goes. You can send me an updated email if you try any of these steps. And hopefully for everyone that's listening to this, there's like some things that you can take and that you can apply to your own life. It doesn't necessarily have to be business related. It could be anything. Like it could literally be anything. I have answered one question in 40 minutes. So I spent even longer on that question than I did on the questions before. So I'm glad that I didn't give myself a challenge of trying to answer questions in a short period of time. I have another, there are so many questions that I wanted to answer. I have so many questions written down from your guys's submissions that I want to answer, that I really, really want to talk about. And, they're so good because it gets me thinking as well, because obviously I can fucking talk, just give me like a topic and I can talk, but there's so many good questions that I feel like are so relevant for people, that could be relevant to loads of different situations, loads of different scenarios, and that I feel experienced and qualified in being able to like speak about for long periods of time. So thank you for all your submissions and all your questions. I had hoped to get through another one today, but I'm gonna leave this here. If you want to put in a submission for a question, I'm gonna leave the question box again linked below here somewhere, that you can put in a question, or you can put in a topic suggestion or a recommendation or whatever that you want me to talk about. And yeah, thank you. I'm going to leave it here because I'm just reading the next question, and it's about a difficult relationship with a mother, and there's so much I want to say. So if I answered that question, this podcast would probably end up being about 19 days long. So I'll end it here, and maybe I'll do another podcast over the weekend. I might do an extra bonus episode over the weekend and answer another question, because I feel like I could keep talking, but I also know that I should probably stop. And there's like a thing as well where if you are like with me, I do somatic therapy and I work with clients, and there's a thing if you, and I had to be really, really, really careful with this, because I can go off on one and I can be quite like, and then this, and then this, and then this, and then this, and then this. And obviously it's been like a lot of practice for me to kind of come back and slow down. And it's been, you can't overwhelm people. Like, and I get very overwhelmed very quickly, but I also am a very overwhelming person because I just fucking talk so much. And if I'm passionate about something, and if I'm knowledgeable about something, and I've like studied something in detail and I'm qualified in something, I will just be like, blah, 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 blah. So it's been a really good thing, especially when I was doing my training, specifically my last training. I had so much practice in like, stop giving everyone all the advice, like stop giving people so many things to try, just like slow it down, just do one thing. So that's why I'm going to end this podcast here, because I don't need to go on any more tangents about any more things. I've spoken enough, and hopefully it was beneficial. Oh my god, I forgot to say, if you're watching this on Spotify, can you give me 5 stars, please? Can you rate my podcast 5 stars? Well, you can rate it whatever you want, but I think it should be 5 stars. Only if you want, but I would suggest 5 stars. Okay, I'm gonna go now. I will talk to you soon. Maybe I'll do an extra bonus episode over the weekend. Maybe not though. I might. Anyway, thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next episode.